It has just been announced that Magic the Gathering is going to actually have a television show on Netflix. But certain things in the recent past have made us all wonder, well, whether Wizards of the Coast can actually tell a good story. Oh God, get it away from me! Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles and, I guess, digital rectangles if you got a big old TV that you're gonna watch the Netflixing on. Is this gonna be Netflix and chill or Netflix and ill, as in the story's so bad it makes you sick to your stomach? So, you may have heard from the handsome gentleman at the beginning of this video that Wizards of the Coast has teamed up with Netflix to bring a Magic the Gathering television show to fruition. Now, there are some people, this guy, who really wonders whether they have the capability to make this a reality. Now, there's a post encapsulating everything known about Netflix's Magic the Gathering show. So let's go over the known information. So the series is called Magic the Gathering. Very, very straightforward. It's an animated series taking place in the world of Magic the Gathering. I like how it's the world of Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering encompasses many, many worlds. It's not adapting any story arcs you might know. So we're not dealing with something that's going to parallel the sets, which is something I had actually tossed out as an idea originally. Maybe they were going to go, oh, hey, you know what? If it's War of the Sparks is out right now, we'll tie it in to the story. Now, in a way, this actually is probably a good thing, truthfully, to separate, to divorce the two, to let the show stand on its own two legs. Now, the storyline's going to be completely new and original, and the official announcement goes thusly: Netflix is joining forces with Joe and Anthony Russo, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro's AllSpark Animation. I like the AllSpark name when it's dealing with Planeswalkers. AllSpark Animation to bring the worldwide phenomenon of Magic the Gathering to the screen for the first time in the iconic franchise's 25-year history with this animated series. I wonder actually if Hasbro's AllSpark Animation is actually an animation division that was specifically created for this purpose. Maybe they had to create it for legal purposes to kind of shove everything off into it. Because, I mean, the AllSpark, War of the Spark, all this sparky kind of thing, it's sparking my imagination. So, the Russos will oversee the creation of an all-new storyline and expand on the story of the Planeswalkers, which are Magic's unique magic-wielding heroes and villains, as they contend with stakes larger than any one world can hold. Well, you just said the world of Magic the Gathering, and now you're saying anyone, what? Okay, anyways, let's put that aside. So, the show will feature creative talent from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Batman the Animated Series, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Firefly, Agent Carter, Ultimate Spider-Man, and the Lego movies. Now, before you get too excited about the names involved, understand they did the same kind of hype training when they announced this novel. The novel that's now on the floor and will remain there because I don't want to pick this piece of garbage up. It's going to lay there like a corpse, like it deserves to, all right? Because that's a sign of how you shouldn't really have too much faith in their storytelling capabilities, even when they're put into the hands of somebody else, because at the end of the day, they're going to want to push their ideologies through it, like they did with the book, which is just, ugh. Anyhow, Octopi, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, will oversee production of the series, with Todd Makarith, Eric Calderon, and Dave Newberg serving as producers, and Mike LaRocca and Isaac Krause serving as executive producers. Henry Gilroy, who is associated with Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and Jose Molina, The Tick, and Agent Carter. I gotta say, I liked the Tick animated series. It was amusing to me. Will serve as lead writers and co-executive producers on the series. And Yoriaki Mochizuki will serve as supervising director and co-executive producer. Animation on the series will be done by Bartle Entertainment. I honestly don't know a lot of these names, so I can't really comment too much as to how high quality what they create is, and how much they're really genuinely bringing to the table. So it continues. We have been huge fans and players of Magic the Gathering for as long as it's been around. So being able to help bring these stories to life through animation is a true passion project for us, said Joe and Anthony Russo. Working with Joe and Anthony, Wizards of the Coast, and Netflix on such a universally cherished brand is a real highlight for our studio, said Isaac Kraus, CEO of Octupi. Our goal is to not only tell a compelling story leveraging Magic the Gathering's incredible body of work, but also to push the medium and perception of storytelling through animation. This series will cross the genres of suspenseful thriller, horror, and drama with deeply developed characters, the likes of which are not seen in animation. This makes me wonder if they plan to use Chandra and Liliana and all the planeswalkers we already know. Well, they've made these characters so incredibly shallow. As we've gone along, Wizards of the Coast has actually removed depth from the planeswalkers. It's kind of amazing. Normally, when you have a cast of characters and you go along, you add more details, you make the characters more fleshed out, give them a history to follow. But as somebody who dives into the lore of Magic the Gathering, they have been making planeswalkers more and more two-dimensional and just going back and changing things to the point where, for example, Nissa used to hate people who weren't elves, okay? And then they just went, oh no, Nissa's not like that. They didn't like develop it through a big story arc where she comes along and grows. They basically just went, she's not racist. Oh, and by the way, they also have tweets out there saying, there is no such thing as racism anywhere in the entire multiverse of Magic the Gathering. So that means that there's no such thing as any kind of racial enmity. If dwarfs can't hate evil ogres or anything like that, there's no, I hate ogres. That doesn't exist anywhere in the entirety of all these magical universes. Now, that seems kind of ridiculous, in all honesty. It's this sort of ideology pushing that affects storytelling, and I have genuine concerns that this is going to impact the story of this show. Now, if this whole thing is set aside and these people are given some characters to work with, but aren't beholden to Wizards of the Coast in terms of we have to go with exactly what you're pushing, then maybe we'll be able to skirt this issue. But for me, that's a big issue where they're just Wizards of the Coast is trying to paint the multiverse as like a friendly, they're trying to play like we have villains and we have evil, but not these kinds of evil and not this. And it's like we have particular things we're trying to push out in the world right now. So these things, there's certain things that just can't exist in Magic the Gathering. And it diminishes storytelling and, in all honesty, believability as well. It's kind of absurd. So I'm going to continue on with what it says here. More fans are enjoying Magic now than at any time in its 25-year history, thanks to the enduring popularity of the tabletop game and our latest release, War of the Spark, as well as the incredible success of our new digital game, Magic the Gathering Arena, said Chris Kirks, president of Wizards of the Coast. I can't even say the guy's last name because it might cause problems for my video. We're thrilled to collaborate with Joe and Anthony Russo to bring Magic the Gathering's rich and diverse cast of characters. Yeah! Diversity! Diversity! I knew we wouldn't make it through without hearing about that. Of course you gotta mention that. Very diverse. Well done. So, our diverse cast of characters and worlds to Netflix in a way that will delight our many fans and those new to the franchise. Magic is a beloved global franchise with a massively engaged fan base that has only continued to grow over the last 25 years, said John Derderian, head of anime programming for Netflix. There's no one better suited to bring this story to audiences around the world than Joe and Anthony Russo, whose talent for genre storytelling is unmatched, as demonstrated by their central role in creating some of the biggest box office hits of all time. So that encapsulates pretty much all of the information that we currently possess regarding this show. I have genuine doubts based on a number of factors. What you need to understand is Wizards of the Coast is so poor at storytelling in terms of anything outside of the cards. When it comes to creating a story told through the cards, they do a half-decent job. And I genuinely think the reason for that is by only giving you little snippets, it allows your imagination to fill in the blanks. And there are certain genres, especially things like horror, where actually the unknown and what your brain can create is better than what it's better than what people can create for you. But when it comes to storytelling, the novel is a great example of how you can take something that might be good and completely just absolutely ruin it, because the novel it's a nightmare of garbage. It's a nightmare of garbage. And if you look at Wizards of the Coast past in terms of visual storytelling in a movie format, the Dungeons and Dragons movies that they made, because understand, Wizards of the Coast owns Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. The Dungeons and Dragons movies were so awful and so poorly done that when Hasbro, and Hasbro is the company that owns Wizards of the Coast, when Hasbro was deciding what game that they own to make a movie about, and Magic, like, think about this for a second. Hasbro had options like Magic the Gathering, and then other options like Monopoly, Battleship. Like, think about the difference between Magic the Gathering, where you have like a rich fantasy, endless amount of multiverses. You can create what you want. You have so much true diversity in terms of things that you can create, all these different worlds, all these magical creatures, all these magical people. You can do anything you want. And then compare that to games like Monopoly, where it's about trying to be a rich fat cat and getting all the money, or something even more simple, which is Battleship, which is a naval battle between two fleets where little plastic boats are shoved onto a pegboard, and you go, D2? And the other guy puts a little peg in there and goes, you sunk my battleship. So these are the properties. These are the style of properties that Hasbro had to choose from. They looked at the abysmal failure of the Dungeons and Dragons movies and said, sure, Magic the Gathering may have as much lore and stuff to pull from as something like Lord of the Rings, but we're going with Battleship because you guys are such failures that we're going to make a movie about little plastic pegboard boats because you can't be trusted to make something compelling. That's how badly they butchered it with Dungeons and Dragons movies. Look at the success of Lord of the Rings. Look at the success of Game of Thrones. Look at the failure of Wizards of the Coast to create compelling stories in the moving picture business. And that to me translates over to a show as well. So I currently am somewhat neutralist, but trending towards this is not going to be a good show. And as much as they're like, this is going to be unlike anything you've ever seen, it's going to be PG-13 at most, and it's going to be geared towards kids. Magic the Gathering more and more has been like, hide the jugs, remove anything adult from the game. It's very childlike. When you go and you read the book, this book reads like it was written for like, it reads like young teen, like Twilight level garbage. I imagine that Twilight is actually better written than this dreadful War of the Spark novel. It's like, this is the most recent foray that Wizards has taken into storytelling outside of actually using the cards. So if you want to go, oh, Mike, you know what? You're not being fair. You're not being fair at all. You're pointing at these movies and that was so long ago and people could have changed, things could have changed and they're going to do a good job. Well, explain to me then how they managed to botch the War of the Spark novel so badly that there are huge chunks of the story missing. All kinds of stuff we should have been told wasn't explained, but they spent extra time to go into detail about ideological relationships, about men and women kissing each other. And I don't mean men and women kissing men and women. I mean, here's some dudes kissing, here's some ladies kissing. This is actually going to get more time being spent describing this and focusing on this. Like, they spent more time talking about Ral making out with Tomek than they did talking about the fight between Sorin and Nahiri. This actual interesting conflict that has a bunch of cool history to it. They didn't even bother to explain it to us. They just had them shown as like a footnote off in the background where at one point a character goes, huh, those two are fighting over there off screen where we won't see it. And then later on, it's like, huh, they're not fighting anymore. They're just hanging out with everybody and everything's cool. That's considered acceptable. They were fine with this book being put out, right? Like this is the level that they tell stories on outside of the cards. Wizards of the Coast only seems capable currently of giving us a story where we get snippets on cards. They talked about War of the Spark being this big epic level confrontation, and even the little story vignettes that they put on the website were completely unrelated to all the dark, underhanded dealings that were happening in the world of Ravnica, all the intrigue. It was just random, like, I'm an electromancer who's going to go deal with fatbergs in the sewer. What's going on? And so I look at this and I go, I really want it to be good. I do. I like good stories. I want to be entertained. I want this to succeed. I remember when I saw the first episode of Game of Thrones and I was blown away. I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. Look at the production values. This is an epic story. But I feel like what's going to happen is this is going to be like the end of Game of Thrones. You know how it was all nonsensical garbage, rushed, whatever, and shoved out there? I feel like that's what we're going to get here. You can attach good, talented names to something, but if underlying the people who are feeding you, here's our work. And so obviously Wizards of the Coast is going to have input, right? It's not like they're just going to say, do whatever you want. They're going to be giving their input. And honestly, they're not really capable of doing a good job. So for me, this seems like it's just going to crash and burn. I don't want it to. I'm not here to just be like, everything they do sucks, because they have done cool things. Honestly, the storyline from Am and Ket, if you take it on its surface, if they hadn't ham-fisted it, if it hadn't been shoved into the middle of this storyline, honestly, to me, the biggest travesty of the entire War of the Spark storyline, aside from the fact that at the end, like I predicted, Nicol Bolas didn't get destroyed. He got put into the meditation realm where they can bring him back wherever. And you know, some people will come along and go, nah, he's over there in the meditation realm and he can never get out. And it's like, why is that? Isn't that a plane? Yeah, he's on his own meditation plane. And aren't there planeswalkers? Yeah. And don't they use magic? Yeah. So couldn't magic be used to undo this? Shut up! You know, it's like they don't have these big stakes. They don't make this, like, they wasted to return to the point, because I am meandering a bit off of it, the point about the Am and Ket world. The story behind the Am and Ket world was amazing. You have Nicol Bolas who shows up and he finds this world where they have these religious cycles, and he decides he's going to turn this world into basically a factory that will create powerful undead warriors for him. That's his goal. So what does he do to accomplish his goal? He wipes out all adult life on the entire plane of existence. He wipes out all adult life on the entire plane. He then actually screws with the solar cycle of the planet. He completely messes things up, where this plane normally would have a religious ceremony like once roughly every 30 years, where they would have these death battles and like just pick a champion and crown him kind of deal. But instead, Nicol Bolas screwed with the solar cycles, so these things would happen on a continual basis. They would have these trials where they would find the best of the best, and they would take these best and destroy them physically so he could turn them into undead. He took the gods of that world and he brainwashed them and he took some off to the side and made them work behind the scenes, and he brainwashed the rest of them into not even realizing that their entire world had been changed. The adult population had been wiped out, and all these kids are brought up in this new brainwashed society where the whole purpose of their existence is to try and like make it to the top of the cycle and be like, I am the king at the top of the pyramid, only to be slain at the top of the pyramid, to be turned into undead, unknowingly just being created for part of his huge invasion army. This is something that should have been attributed to an entirely different villain. This shouldn't have just been something they threw to Nicol Bolas and it's like a side note. This could have been the top point, the pinnacle of a new villain in Magic the Gathering. But instead, they threw it away. Bolas just ends up, no, that world doesn't even matter. At the end, he just destroys the whole world for no reason. For no reason. Instead of keeping it as a factory and continuing to churn out troops, he destroys the whole world. He keeps the troops, though. He keeps the troops for himself, but he destroys the whole setup. And then when he uses the troops on Ravnica, they're weak nothing burgers. It's as if they didn't create these super, like you went and you found the absolute champions of these people, and then you took them at their peak power and you imbued them with this magic that would allow them to keep their personality and their power. And then you plated them. You plated them with Lazotep, which makes them stronger. It makes them even stronger than regular undead. And then they just get brought to Ravnica, and they're a throwaway thing that Liliana just gets to turn on Bolas. They don't bother giving Liliana a real character arc where she becomes good for a reason. They just abruptly go, Liliana's good now, by the way, and she's gonna keep all the skeletons. She's gonna keep all them evil undead from going to the populated parts, and we're gonna show her in a trailer crying over two people getting crushed by boulders. And people were so desperate to try and make it make sense that they went, this has to represent Liliana and her brother. And it's like, she destroyed her brother hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and she didn't care, really. She genuinely didn't care that much. If you guys don't know, Liliana Vess's name is a villainous. It's an anagram. They took a villainous and scrambled it around to make Liliana Vess, which I thought was cute. And Liliana is a necromancer who animates the dead and has them carry her around on this big, palanquin, like she's royalty. And all of a sudden they're like, nuh-uh, Liliana's good now, and she's gonna turn against Bolas. And it's like, you could have just had her turn on Bolas because she was angry that he enslaved her and that she just wouldn't accept serving anybody else and was like, screw it, if I get destroyed by this, I'm going to get free no matter what. But instead of doing that, nope, we're just gonna have her turn good. What are you doing? And on top of that, you have Bolas, who's 20,000 years old, master of manipulation, master of deceit. He manipulates all these different planeswalkers, enslaves these different planeswalkers, all this stuff. But when it comes down to the possibility of a necromancer turning his own undead minions, that he created an entire world. He created an entire world. Not created, sorry, but he subverted an entire world into creating these insane, amazing undead that he planned to use for his ultimate plan to become a god. And then he just doesn't plan for the deceit of a necromancer that he has under his thumb under the threat of she'll be destroyed if she doesn't do what she's told. So he just sets it up so the undead can be taken over by her. There's no way that this genius, who is ahead of everybody to the point where he had developed defeat spells, a spell that could defeat every single planeswalker of the Gatewatch individually. He created custom spells that would destroy each member of the Gatewatch. But nope, he didn't bother to do something where, if my undead get turned against me by this planeswalker, I can just go, there we go. Guess what? They're back under my control. Nope, he doesn't do that. So this is the kind of ridiculous storytelling we have to deal with Magic the Gathering, where they've basically storyboarded this whole thing where they say Nicol Bolas gets outwitted at the end. They don't come up with a way that's clever. They don't come up with a way that makes sense. They don't care about consistency over block to block. They don't care about any of that. Whatever they're doing right now is all they care about. Whatever they need to change, who cares what happened in the past? No, we're not going to explain to you how Sorin got out of the rock prison that he's in. Why would we do that? Just know that Sorin and Nahiri are fighting, and we're going to give you no details about it. So my trust in Wizards of the Coast's ability to deliver a good story is pretty much non-existent at this point. I don't have faith. They've come a long way from the Weatherlight days, and it's in a bad direction. So for me, I look at this show and go, please do a good job. I don't think you will, but please at least try. You know, at this point, I feel like I'm just going to keep going on with more points, and I think that I've illustrated pretty well why I don't have faith in their storytelling capabilities. So let's just roll the golden scroll. These are the people who have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. I want to welcome my newest patron, Joshua Donovan. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. It's meaningful to me. And I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Raul Sabalos, who increased his Patreon pledge, doubled it. Thank you very much for your support. It's very meaningful to me. To all of you, I say thank you for being here. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Are you feeling like me? Do you think it's going to be terrible? Are you hopeful? Either way, let me know in the comments, because for now, I'm history, baby. Get the hell out. I said, get out of here.